Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 134. Is it? Yes, I believe it's 135. Yes, 135. Welcome to the Mindful Live 135. It may say 134 over there on YouTube, but I believe it's 135. I'm mistaken numbering there. We're talking tonight about mental health because the 10th of the 10th was Mental Health Day. That was the day chosen to, focus in more on mental health. And we're starting with an article where they're talking and they're focusing, I think rightfully, some of the mental health on the males, on the men out there. Because when we're looking at the results of mental health issues, we're seeing that it could seem many of the men are having some of the worst results of these negative fallouts from mental health. And when you're talking about the results of mental health, I think I was saying this to the live before I started here on YouTube. I think a very important thing that sometimes is missing when we're talking social discussions is evaluating the results to see if the results we are getting, the answers we are getting, are the answers we want for the questions we are asking. So if we're talking about mental health and we're talking about dealing with mental health and raising this issue as a more serious issue in and around the country and in and around our society, well, okay, great. We've done that for some time. Is it true that in doing so we are seeing more positive results in mental health? And I'll say one of the prime results you could look at with mental health would be the occasion and the occurrence of mental health illnesses. Now, we can see over the last couple of years the occurrence of mental illnesses in the population has been skyrocketing. Good evening, Shad. Has been skyrocketing. Now, some people have said that's because more people are paying attention to their mental health now and they're actually going to get it checked out, and because they're checking out what is wrong with them, well, obviously you'll see an increase in the amount of mental diseases because they are actually getting it diagnosed. It always existed, it's just a lot of people didn't care to find it out. Okay, fair enough. But then there are more drastic mental health occurrences that you could see are increasing, something that you can't just blame for sustained traffic for 17 years has affected my mental health. I don't doubt you at all, sir. I don't doubt you at all. We can look at some of the more drastic outcomes and see that they too are increasing. Are the methods we're using effective? I think that's a good question. All right, let's dive into the article here. Over on the Newsday, World Mental Health Day marks the other pandemic. A progressive attitude towards mental health and wellness in TT has proliferated since the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly at a governmental level and among youth and men, says clinical psychologist Asha Garib. Men are such key players in helping overcome the stigma attached to mental health and wellness, Garib told Newsday, and it's empowering to other men who need help. When you see a male championing this cause, it's easier for a male who needs help to recognize, okay, I can do this. Mental health issues know no boundaries, affecting people in all income brackets and social status everywhere around the world. Insufficient or a complete lack of care for people suffering with mental health issues are on the rise globally. Although attitudes towards mental wellness are generally improving, the World Federation for Mental Health says provisions for dealing with mental health issues continue to pose a challenge in low, middle, and high income countries. All right. So there are some things in this I fully agree with, and some things in this I'm not sure about. I shrug at. So they're talking about men being key players in the overcoming the stigma attached to mental health. I agree with that. I agree that many men need to check their mental health, and it's very important. And if you look at the actual results of it, we'd go in later, a little later here, to actually look at some. We could pull it up all now. There are many graphs on that where you could look at the presence and occurrence of self-harm. Some of the algorithms try to get a little testy when you're talking about this, but you could look at the occurrence of people who are taking themselves out of the equation, if you understand what I mean. And I have a graph up here, and the graph shows in every single country from since the early 70s, since they were taking the results, it has pretty much always been men. Men have been more represented in self-harm. Always. So obviously, there's something going on in many men's lives that they aren't dealing with properly. The results seem to tell that. My question, though, is, as they say here, they talk about empowering and getting help for it. What exactly is the help they're talking about? Because a lot of the help they talk about usually is therapy sessions and psychology, and I don't doubt the effectiveness of all of that. But sometimes I wonder, in the last couple decades, the presence of all these new, more modern ways of solving mental health issues have been skyrocketing. Yet still, if you look at a graph of the occurrence of self-harm in the last couple years, it has been on the rise. So something we're doing obviously is not working, or isn't working as good as we would want it to. I think that needs some reevaluation. I am not sure if the way how we focus on mental health in modern times is the best way to do it. I find many times when I hear people talk about mental health, it nearly sounds like if they're proud about it, if they're nearly gloating in it, if they're wallowing in it. You're talking about mental health and you're spinning inside of your depression. I don't know if that's all that beneficial. And I find sometimes when you look at the results, it seems to tell the story that it may not actually be the way to go. The WFMH, which is the World Federation for Mental Health, an international non-governmental organization founded in 1948, has designated October 10th World Mental Health Day with the theme "Make Mental Health and Well-Being for All a Global Priority." It makes for a fitting discussion in the context of TT Society's views on mental health, which are heading in the right direction, said Garb. Ahead of World Mental Health Day, the president of that organization noted that in high-income countries, over 75% of people with depression have reported that they do not receive adequate care, and in low and middle-income countries, over 75% of people with mental health conditions have received no treatment at all. Yes, I did see that interview, Shad, and I found Mr. Tate. That interview made Mr. Tate look better than he looked in many other cases. That's just how I found about that interview. But yes, I saw that interview. So they're saying here, in high-income countries, 75% of the population with depression have reported they do not receive adequate care. And in middle and low income countries, 75% of the population receive no treatment at all. So if we had to go off of this, we're looking for evidence here. We're looking for things based on evidence here to look at how we deal with mental health issues. Listen, I'm repeating it again. I am not questioning the existence of serious mental health issues. We're just discussing, yes, that's what we're getting to. C.L. Makazi, that's what we're getting to. I'm not talking about the existence of these issues. I think ever since humans existed, problems in your mind have always been there. Oh, kamikaze. Well, that's not how I'm seeing it spelled here. But I'm good with kamikaze. All right. Interesting name considering the topic, just by the way, Mr. Kamkazi. But problems in your mind have always existed. Always. So I'm not doubting that. Evidently, problems with men and dealing with those mental problems are existing. I'm not doubting that. But we're talking about the treatment, and they're talking about moving. We're moving in the right direction. And if I am to presume I understand what they're talking about. They're talking about getting that professional therapy and psychological treatment and the more modern ways of dealing with the anxieties and the depression, etc., etc., etc. Because there have always been ways to deal with that, especially for men. Men, and a serious way through the ages of dealing with that was keeping yourself physically occupied. And strangely, physically occupied men seem less likely to be depressed and want to harm themselves. But okay. So they're saying 75% of people in high income countries don't have all the help they need. But 75% of people in low income countries have none at all. So we're to presume then that the high income countries, when it comes to things like depression and self-harm, the high income countries are supposed to be doing way better than the low income countries, based on at least this, because 75% of the people with mental health issues in low income countries, according to them, hey bro, David Critchlow over there on Instagram, according to them, receive no help. But interestingly enough, if you look at a graph and look at death rate by self-harm, and you look at it and watch the countries that have the highest death rates. The one that seems to be standing out the most is Greenland. Greenland isn't a low-income country. You look around the world, and many of the highest income countries are some of the countries with some of the highest rates of depression and self-harm. What is it in a high income country that would cause people who are better able to receive some kind of mental health help, what causes them to still be worse off? And what causes people who exist in low income countries where 75% of them, according to this article, get no help? None whatsoever. At least no professional help. What causes these people who get no professional help to somehow have better outcomes when it comes to mental health? They aren't as depressed. They don't have the same urge to, not exist on this earth anymore. And they are receiving no mental health help at all. So is it that no help in mental health actually gives better results? Is the help helping? And how much is the help helping? Someone spoke there in the chat over there on TikTok about Andrew Tate, and he's one of the names called really regularly these days. Mr. Tate is a popular name these days, and I was watching Once Upon a Time. He was in quite a bit of trouble for trying to tackle this same depression issue, and he spoke about depression, and he said he doesn't believe in depression. He thinks it does not exist. That's the way he stated it. These aren't my words. He is saying that. And when he actually got a little more in depth with it, what he was trying to espouse is he was basically saying that he believes, especially for men, it doesn't benefit a man to think about his depression too much and go sit with a therapist for 3 hours and talk about what makes him depressed. And while I may not jump in on the really sharp end of it like him, like that, and say I don't believe it exists, of course depression exists, I could understand the sentiment he's getting at, where I think the way we treat with it, where it's nearly like people, if we're being honest, like let's be honest with it, it seems nearly like a lot of people have some pride in their mental health issues. It could nearly seem like they're obsessed with being mentally ill. You look on someone's profile and they have a list of their mental health problems. Like, what is this? How is it? How come it seems like some people have a nearly positive view of mental health issues? I find something in that does not seem sensible. And I wonder if some of how we are treating it in these days actually works against the beneficial treatment of mental issues. And I think for a large extent we have pathologized it. So many people speak about mental issues being a disease. So depression is an illness, anxiety is an illness. This is something that you are sick with. And the idea being it's not your fault. It's like if you got the flu or if you got chicken pox, it's not like you're doing something to give yourself these chicken pox here, but you have a disease and these are just the symptoms that are being displayed. And that's how they speak about some of these mental health issues. And in speaking about it, so the treatment for it comes similar to that. So for a long time now, they treated depression and some anxieties with SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, I believe that stands for. And a couple months ago, they found out that really and truly, the whole idea behind the science of how those SSRIs were supposed to work didn't work. And one of the side effects of SSRIs was suicidal ideation. So the medicine you're giving people who are struggling with depression has a possible side effect of increasing the ideation towards self-harm. And now we found out that it doesn't really help them in the first place. And I think we ended up in this problem because we pathologized something that may have been more, not saying it's only, but more behavioral. I wonder how many people are depressed because they're living depressed lives. You're single, lonely, have no prospect of family, and now you're depressed. Well, you don't need medication. You maybe need a husband or a spouse. And these things may have been obvious to generations before. If a 46-year-old single childless person came and told someone in the 1800s that I'm feeling very sad every day and I don't want to go on, they would have told them, well, it's because you don't have the usual things that humans have that make their life feel fulfilling. They wouldn't have told you that you need to go and pump yourself full of drugs to somehow numb that. That's my thought on it. And I every so often while I'm talking about this, I want to insist. I am not ignoring the existence of mental health issues at all. I am very, very aware of how serious they are and how serious they could be, how it could affect family members. I am very much aware. I'm talking about the treatment, and I believe there are some issues that require medical treatment. The brain is an organ. An organ can go haywire. An organ can be in imbalance. There are some things that could go wrong with your lungs as an organ. There are some things that could go wrong with your heart as an organ, with your stomach, with your intestines, with your skin. All of your organs can have some kind of negative behavior, some malfunctioning. I don't doubt that. And sometimes, according to what it is, it may need some kind of medical intervention, some chemical to go in there, and that might be all you need, and you're back to normal. Grand. I'm not doubting that. But many of these organs too, like the heart, sometimes your heart isn't working too well. And the thing is, you don't need some heart medicine. You need some exercise. Hi, Midas. What's up? Hi, King Kaka. And it's not that you need some medicine. your heart isn't working too well. No, you need some exercise. You need to go and increase your heart rate. You need to go and do some cardiovascular exercise, get your heart rate pumping, and that's what you need for your heart. And maybe some of the people who have mental health issues, yes, sometimes they may need the medical intervention, but other than that, they may need behavioral intervention. They may need life-changing kind of intervention to change how they live their lives. In modern times, because of the whole idea of freedom and the liberality in modern days, we have the idea that nothing in our behavior is supposed to have a negative effect on us. You know, we are supposed to be able to live how we want, experience everything we want, and we are supposed to find some other way to always negate any of the kind of negative consequences of our actions. But that's just not the reality of life. Actions have consequences, and certain actions are going to have deleterious consequences on your life, deleterious effects, long-lasting effects on your life. Yeah, like stop smoking is such a helpful change. Very true. Very true. Some people, some of the young people in the life, some of the young men, maybe some of you are weed smokers and you're just smoking too much weed, and that might be why you're depressed. You got to evaluate things a little differently, a little differently. That was my thought on the mental health day that was yesterday, the 10th of the 10th, and how I see this issue. I do think it's an important issue, and I think it's a crucial issue because the psychologist in that article was saying that she believed we were heading in the right direction. But you could wonder about that sometimes. When you're looking at the outcomes of the mental health issues, you could wonder if we are indeed heading in the right direction, because is the mental health of the present generation better off than the mental health of the previous generation? Massimo, yo, good night. We're talking, well, at least we started talking tonight about mental health issues, because yesterday, the 10th of the 10th, was World Mental Health Day, and I was saying that I totally agree with the importance of mental health and focusing on it, and the effect it has on each person and their families and the societies, etc. No doubt about that, but I have some questions about how we treat it in present time, in the present day. And I was saying that I find many of our social issues, many of our social studies, our social sciences, we don't evaluate results well. We look at, we come up with good ideas. So, all right, I gave this example early on. We decided that sex education was important. There's a problem with the young people are getting involved in sexual activities without being properly knowledgeable on it, and it's having bad effects on the young people. Okay, how are we going to solve it? Well, we're going to have sex education in the schools. All right, we came up with that idea. But are we evaluating the results of the ideas? Are we looking, okay, we started teaching sex education in the schools 20 years ago. Now, 20 years later, are the results, are the outcomes objectively better for it? Or is it just that we have become so attached to our good ideas? You know, that's one of the problems with very educated people. No offense to the educated people. I like education. Education is important. But very educated people oftentimes get attached to good ideas. New commissioner of police, well, new acting commissioner of police, a woman. Look at that. But yeah, very educated people could get attached to ideas. So, if I haven't been to university, I haven't been to tertiary education, I haven't been to too much schooling, I stick with what works. I know when I chuck the tomato seed and I chuck it in the cup in this direction at this, I know that works. I'm going to do that every time. Education, someone studies a theory and they have this theory that they have studied for years in university, but it has never actually been tried. So they work their way into some kind of position of authority and they execute this good theory because, you know, in university they have always been taught that this is the way this is going to. Are we evaluating the results at the end of it? So at the end of, well, not at the end, after all of this teaching about sex education, are the young people behaving better sexually? Is it, would it, can we say that now liberalizing and removing the taboos involved in sexual talk and education have done better for our society? Or is it best that we, or can we say, looking at the results, can we say it's best that we go back and treat it like a taboo and nobody talk about anything to do with that and we pretend like it doesn't exist? Usually placing a plaster on problems, Kyrie Spirit says we don't think about the next steps and the steps beyond. Not only the next steps and the steps beyond, the step that we took. We need to evaluate the step we take and see if this step makes sense. Now, I wasn't talking about sex education. That's not actually what the topic was. The topic was to do with mental health. And the focus we are seeing in modern times, if we're being honest, there is indeed a much greater focus on mental health in these days. And are the results we're seeing the increased rate of self-harm in the younger generation? Is that showing that the increased focus, the increased manner in which we deal with mental issues, is it showing by results that we are having beneficial results from it? I was speaking about the fact that so many young people, that's it, Nate. We think that the solution is just one step. Correct. I agree with that. The solution is never one step. And so many young people, when we look at how we deal with mental issues, I was saying this. I look at sometimes you're scrolling through social media and I look at a profile and I see a profile and someone has their mental health issues self-diagnosed and listed. Like, well, I am all these special ones are slipping me now. If you go over on TikTok, you'll see them in great numbers. People talking about they have split personalities and multiple personality disorders, and they're self-diagnosing themselves with this. And they're recording a video, and they're here talking like this, and this. What is the word? Who is presenting now? This is my male personality, and then they do, well, this is my female personality, and you're like, what is this? And to me, some of that came about because of the way we are treating mental issues in the present day. We have put so much focus on it, rightfully in some instances. We have put so much focus on it that some young people see a great way to get attention is to dabble in this whole mental issues thing. And I'm sick, I'm really ill. And sometimes we act like we don't understand human nature. Hey, I was a teenager, I was a young person. I know many young people fake illness for the attention too. So just as important as it is to deal with mental health issues, I wonder if sometimes the manner in which we deal with it is the best way, or if sometimes we need to look back at some of the more traditional ways. So in an article that I was reading there, psychologists spoke about the fact that in wealthy nations, 75% of the people suffering with mental health issues don't have access to the right level of help. And 75% of people in poorer nations have access to no help for their mental health issues. And then we went through statistically, there are charts showing this, that in the wealthier nations, the instance of depression and self-harm, I just don't want to see the actual word too much for the algorithms, etc. The instances of self-harm and depression are much higher in those wealthier nations. So is it that, tell me, how is it that the nations where 75% of people with mental health issues get no professional help, how is it that they are less depressed and less interested in scurrying themselves off of the mortal coil? How is it? How is it that the people with more treatment are showing worse outcomes? And are we honestly looking at the treatments and wondering if these treatments are working? Themselves from field ideas, themselves from flawed ideas, and often abandon practicality. Correct. Counseling is accessible to persons working in the public service. However, if you opt to take it, persons generally look down on you. That was the point the article was attempting to make, that in Trinidad and Tobago there is a culture where we do look at some mental health issues with stigma, and I agree. especially in the case of men, that you should not stigmatize mental health to such a degree where someone could be struggling with something and they are ashamed to seek help for it. That's insane. Like I said it already. Your brain, your mind, your brain is an organ. And just like many of your other organs, it could go awry. Something could malfunction. It could be ill. It could be sick. Something could be out of balance. Can you imagine if someone has something not functioning well with their lung? Their lung isn't functioning well, they aren't breathing well, and they go to a doctor to try and get some help to breathe well, and you look at them and laugh at them like, look at you. You had to go and see a doctor to see about your lung. Like, yes, they did. If your lung isn't working well, you go see a doctor to try and get it to work better. If your brain, your mind isn't functioning well, I agree. Seek professional help. But I'm talking more on the social side, even beside that. And I pointed this out. I'm reiterating some of this for some of the people that just tuned in. Even on the social side, sometimes we pathologize the mental illnesses so much where every single thing that doesn't feel too good, we look for a medical solution for it. And I was talking about the fact that for quite some time, SSRIs were used to treat depression and several other mental illnesses. And recently, a study came out that showed, for the most part, SSRIs do not help with what they are supposed to be helping with. And in fact, they make it worse. And in fact, they are addictive. So, yeah, that's not helping. Massimo said, I think individuals that have higher intelligence are often captured by the grandeur of idealist theories which can integrate subtly, but have a noticeable effect on those individuals, distracting themselves from flawed ideas and often abandoning practicality. I 100% agree. That's why most of the people who are socialists and communists are well-educated people, strangely enough. Well, probably not strangely. Person generally. Yes. All right. Moving away from the very serious issue of mental health, we're heading over to work from home. Because, as someone pointed out early on in the live, the traffic going to Port of Spain has had a negative effect on their mental health for the past 17 years. And I do not doubt you. I do not doubt you at all. Listen, there are times I'm living in Central. When you leave late, if you have to go do something in Port of Spain, and let's say you're coming from like the Freeport flyover, for my Central people, you know where I'm talking about here. And the Freeport flyover, the Freeport on-ramp, is you coming from kind of low and you rise onto the highway. So, you're not seeing the highway when you start on the on-ramp. You're not seeing it yet. It's like the road is like this and you kind of slowly view over the road and see what's on the highway. And sometimes you make that turn and you're driving onto the highway, and as the highway becomes visible and you see those long lines of just red lights, your heart sinks. And you start questioning, do I really need to go and do whatever I think I need to go and do today? You're watching that and you're looking at 2 hours of your life just going down the drain there. Yeah. Chamber, starting talks on work from home wouldn't hurt. Panelists at ATT Chamber of Commerce virtual workshop said while there are still things to be considered while looking into a work from home policy for both the public and private sectors, it wouldn't hurt to start the conversation about working from home, what is needed, its benefits and its drawbacks. I can relate. Hashtag reverse anti-ramp. I'm not going to lie. I have reversed back down. Is back down redundancy? I have reversed back down the ramp. I don't think that's redundant. I've reversed back down some of those ramps in my life before. You drive up and you're like, you know what? I don't think I need to go do this today. Some other day, some other time. Kyrie says, I work from home. There are lots of flaws because of the mindset of employers. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that there are setbacks to working from home, but that's the thing. You have to figure it out. It's yet to be fully figured out. It wouldn't hurt to start the conversation about working from home, what is needed, its benefits and its drawbacks. It wouldn't hurt to seed the idea and move forward or move toward it, said Jonathan Cumberbatch, Vice President of the University of TT. I appreciate that there are difficulties, but having said that, it wouldn't hurt to raise the topic and get it out there. Cumberbatch said the issue of traffic has reached crisis levels. I watch the traffic every morning, and I cannot comprehend how someone would do this every morning. The idea of seeing these cars in front of them, then the flashing brake lights for 2 hours both ways. That is some people's version of hell. It's unacceptable. I agree. Thank you, Neil Hamilton. Appreciate it. I agree. That is some people's version of hell. That is torture. It's torturous. And there must be some way to figure this out. Like the negatives of the work from home possibilities and the work from home policies, the negatives of them, yes, there are negatives without a doubt, but don't act like there aren't negatives with the current system we have. The current system we have involves many people, thousands of people, wasting hours of their day every single day. I wonder if you could tabulate, if you could calculate all of the hours wasted in everyone's day. Everyone who sits in that morning peak traffic and that afternoon peak traffic, calculate all of their hours and calculate how much they are paid per hour and see how much money is lost just sitting in traffic there. And then look at that figure and tell me if the difficulties of figuring out a work from home policy isn't worth it. And as I said before, obviously work from home isn't going to be everyone. If you work in the emergency department as a surgeon, as a doctor or something, obviously you have to be on the job. Of course, let's be reasonable. We're not saying everyone can or should work from home. But obviously there are some who can. Yes, I know about traffic. I live penal and worked. Neil Hamilton says he lives penal and worked Shagaramas. Listen, I should have been in the old studio where I had my map of Trinidad and Tobago. For anyone who is not a Trinity, the few of you who there might be inside of the life, that is possibly the worst run, sir. My heart goes out to you. Honestly, it does. I feel you. Wendell says the biggest negative is there will be a need for accountability across the board. Yes, I agree. There would be a need for accountability across the board. But the thing is, as I was just saying, sometimes when we talk about the negatives of one thing, we speak as if there aren't current negatives in the thing that exists now. How much accountability across the board is there right now? How many workers go to work right now and don't work? Dr. Rowley used that as his excuse in saying that we aren't ready for work from home. We don't have the discipline. There are people going to work right now and not working. And okay, so how is it a negative that you're saying people aren't going to work if they're working from home when you're saying they aren't doing it in the office either? So what? You'd prefer them go waste their time in Port of Spain? No. If you have to waste your time, stay home and waste your time. At least I think that will be better for everyone. Instead of going and crowding the streets to go down in town and still waste your time. Anyway, let's go on, see what they said further than that. I cannot speak to every job being laptop based or what have you, but we do know that so much of the tasks can be done at home with a minimal IT infrastructure, and that's the fact. There are many things right now, and that's part of my problem with this. They're talking like in order to do work from home, we have to figure out some really grand thing and redo the entire infrastructure in the entire country to get things so sophisticated that everyone is in virtual, they're in Meta's virtual reality, and you're virtually sitting in an office. No, 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 no. Like, I was saying last night when we were talking about this, how many people in the public service are clerks, and how much of the job specs of a clerk could be done just on a laptop at home. And they aren't doing high secret stuff. They're doing things that it's not classified. You're just typing something. You could type that home, and you could see whether they type it up or not. You'd know if the thing is not done. This statement came in the wake of the Prime Minister and what he said. We know he said he thinks we are not ready for this in 2021. Well, we know that there are things that need to be happened yet. On Monday, during the third session of the Standing Finance Committee, Minister of Public Administration Alison West echoed Rowley's statements while fielding questions from the opposition. So we know. Here's the timeline of this. The PNM government, the ruling government, promised work from home policies if they get elected. That was part of their election campaign promises. They promised it. Good luck with that. Then somewhere in March, was it? I believe March, the former head of government business, Clarence Rambarat, he said that they're currently working on it. They have a multi-ministerial committee with heads of this and that, and they're looking at the matter, and well, we don't know what came of that either. Then now we're hearing that there was $1 million. The planning minister said $1 million was allotted to the Ministry of Public Administration for them to work on the work from home policy, but she has no idea about the timeline when they're going to figure out this. This is Alison West, the Minister of Public Administration. The public service is not quite ready for work from home, because we need to ascertain what needs to be put in place to allow for that in a seamless manner. Now, this upsets me because I was speaking about this the other night. We started work from home already. We started it during the pandemic. Are you telling me that no one was paying attention to what was missing, what was needed, what would have worked better during that period in time? Are you trying to tell me that no one could have been skillful enough at managerial duties to be able to seamlessly working that work from home that was already in existence during the pandemic and let that run? Why would we totally stop it, and now we have to pay money to figure out how to really get this to happen? It's insane in Trinidad here how we do things like that. So for example, the same PNM government, well, we know they did it long time ago, but yes, they did it. They stopped the train service and then spent some hundreds of millions of dollars trying to figure out how to redo a train service. Like, these things don't make sense, people. How could you stop the work from home and now we're going to pay to figure it out? It's really disappointing to me. And the fact that it seems like this sounds like so much rocket science for them to try and figure out. It's rocket science, you know. They can't figure this out simply. We need the millions of dollars and to pay the consultants and etc. to figure out exactly what we need and this and that and that. So in the meantime, waste your money, waste your fuel, waste your frustration in this traffic coming to Port of Spain for something that can be done much more efficiently. Isn't that something? And in speaking about that train and public transport, PTSD passengers want more than a cheaper service, because we were hearing people touting about the fact, well, the government touting about the fact that we have a public transport system. People can't complain about fuel prices. We have public transport. If you cannot afford it, we have pretty cheap public transport. Go take the PTSD buses. The Public Transport Service Corporation has been heavily promoting its low-cost services, but commuters say cheaper does not necessarily mean better. The PTSD bus service is less than half the cost of all maxi and taxi services out of Port of Spain. But some PTSD users at Citygate complain about long wait times, services cancelled at short notice, and buses in need of upkeep. The PTSD has posted on its social media a list of bus fares from various routes. And in this article, if you want to see the price of traveling, like, listen. I'm a man, I've traveled real travels in my life. I've traveled. But it's been a while since I've really been traveling. So the last probably 3 years of price increases, I'm not very familiar with. Looking through this article, here now, some of the prices in traveling. I don't think my eyebrow could raise high enough. A PTSD bus all stops from Port of Spain to Arima costs $2.50. Meanwhile, maxi taxis cost $10 to any location. Taxis to Arima cost a bit more at $13. From Arima to PTSD's Malabar and La Joqueta services cost $3, whereas taxis cost $6 and $7 respectively. Buses between Port of Spain and Tunapuna cost $3. Otherwise, maxis charge $10. Taxis to Diego Martin cost $7. The maxi taxi costs $6. PTSD bus charges $3. On Broadway, near KFC, there are taxis to Shoguanas from Port of Spain, which cost $15. Comparatively, PTSD buses cost $4. 15 to 4. Yeah, 15 to 4 is a kind of big deal. $15 to reach Shoguanas in a taxi. $4 in a bus. Like, even if that bus not on time, if you're a school child, you going in that bus. No way you could be in school uniform and I be your parent paying for you and you jumping in a taxi. Sir, lad, buy a ticket and go in a bus. That's a big difference. On October 3rd at Citygate, commuter Shanice Edmond, 28, was waiting for a bus to Shoguanas. But, according to her, this is her quoting here, the bus does run on time. The bus does not run on time. So it forces you to use private transport. Today, I'm trying to see if it will run on time or if I would have to pay for maxi or taxi like normal. And I understand that. You see, people's lives are scheduled out. If you're a parent, you have to leave Port of Spain and reach home in a certain time because that certain time is when your children may be home. Maybe you have an arrangement there in a different place until you reach. But if you don't reach home by the 4:30, then calls have to be made. Alternative arrangements have to be made. I know I'm familiar with this. I've been in teaching and tutoring for a while, and I know some teachers. So for example, for preschools, this is a regular problem in preschools. The preschool finishes 1:30, 2 o'clock, whatever time the preschool finishes. But if mommy can't get a taxi in time to reach exactly for the time preschool finishes, then she has to pay extra for after school looking. They have to look after that child longer after school. She has to figure out ways to pay for that. So if she has to depend on a public transport system, the public transport system has to be prompt. Someone has to be able to depend on that. I have to be able to depend on this, that if I want to reach somewhere in time, I could choose this. But if you cannot depend on it to be timely, you cannot make plans with public transport in mind. And if you cannot make plans with it in mind, the usage of it becomes kind of much more difficult. There are not enough buses to adequately service the route, Tony the ambassador says, but they have some solutions coming for that. Just by the way, Edmund said that the bus runs every hour, but most times when I come here, it either now gone or half hour late. Last time I waited nearly 3 hours and still had to take a taxi. And these are the horror stories that cause our public transport system to be so underutilized. If I'm going to work and today I wait for the bus, I'm waiting for the 5 o'clock bus because I want to beat the traffic and reach to 5 a.m. bus. Today I'm waiting for the bus. It comes 5:30. Okay. I'm half hour late. I get caught in traffic. That's horrible. All right. I'm trying again tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm waiting for the bus. I wait till 5:30. The bus still didn't come. So I had to jump in a taxi and now pay 3 times the price to go. That was a cost not in my budget because I was planning on the bus. And then, you know what, the third day I said, you know, I'm going to wait on the bus. I let them in work know that I'm going to wait on the bus. So if I come late, you understand why. You wait on the bus and then you find out, you know what, the bus never actually came. No one warned you, but for some reason that bus didn't run at all on the route this morning. These are the kinds of things. You do that for 3 days and you're signing off that bus forever. You could pass someday and see the bus passing and you're like, whatever, I'm still going for my taxi because I know that's not something that I could depend on. And that's what happens very often in Trinidad and Tobago. People understand that the bus service, the public transport service isn't something you could plot a schedule off of. You can't, it's undependable. So people don't utilize it. Has anyone suggested how to improve unreliability? Well, people are suggesting these things. An idea that I have always suggested is use technology. There should be a PTSC app. I should be able to tap my PTSC app and see the location of all active buses. You know the change that would have right there? If I could pull up an app and see the location of all active buses, I could say, okay, the bus, all right, the bus running, all right, okay, and ETA, estimated time of arrival, is in 15 minutes. I could get ready for that. So even if the bus is a little unreliable in terms of keeping to if they're supposed to be running every hour on the hour or whatever, if they're unreliable with their timing, if you have an app that shows the location of every bus constantly, it doesn't actually have to be that reliable on the timing front if you could know where it is. That I've been saying this for years because as I said, I've traveled before, and the buses, if you catch a good bus, the bus isn't a bad ride. Some of those buses, the good ones that are in tip-top form, they're air-conditioned, nice soft seats, as good a ride as any. So I don't mind being in a bus, but it's just the unreliability. If you have an app or something where you could track the location and the time, the ETA, when they're supposed to be here or there, which bus is currently functioning, which bus is down, if you have something just that simple, it already blows a lot of this out of the water. They have this system in London. It's extremely efficient. I will not doubt that at all. Our electrician says. Now, they were actually talking about this further down in the article here. Well, not this article. In the article where they're talking about Sininan vows to double PTSC fleet. The size of the PTSC bus fleet will be doubled, vowed Minister of Works and Transport Rohan Sininan. So for the people who are saying that there aren't enough buses on the route, there's a promise that the fleet is going to be doubled. That's a good promise. Couva North MP sought details of the fleet and of management vacancies, the latter details which remained pending. Sinan said the PTSC fleet now stood at 385 buses, of which 244 were operational. Of the 385, some 141 buses were in some stage of maintenance, while 21 needed to be disposed of, he said. The minister admitted to logistical challenges with obtaining parts and with shipping. Sinan said the PTSC now has 24 different types of buses, each requiring their own parts, even as he hoped to rationalize the fleet down to 2 to 3 types. Now, these are the issues that make government running of nearly anything so problematic. It makes you think like government shouldn't run anything. Get these people out of running everything, because they're so unwise in their decision making. Who was the person that decided, okay, we have this brand of bus, we're going to buy some new buses, we're going to buy a different brand. And the next time we buy a new set of buses, we're going to buy another different brand. 24 different types of buses in our PTSC fleet. Like, anyone thinking about business management could look at that and see that is insane. Nisi says, I tried that over the August vacation, thinking I'll take my children on a bus ride to Shag. Bus never showed up. After standing there for 2 hours. Never me again. You see, just like that. And somebody already swear off the bus there. Never me and that bus again. That bus could be passing. You could pass and go your way. I don't care. I don't even want to see that bus again. And it's understandable. Ratiram queried a $5 million allocation, which Sinan said was for the computerized tracking of buses and to help passengers make e-payments. Ratiram said the PTSC had already fitted their buses with GPS linked to software and asked if that initiative had been discontinued. Sinan said the newer initiative was a much more developed system to have customers buy tickets online and be more welcomed. So imagine my consternation when I read this article and I found out that our PTSC buses are already equipped with GPS, and this GPS is already being inputted into software. So we are already 60% on the way to doing what I suggested would be so much more functional. How hard would that be? You get a Google Map draw out. What you talking about? So we're talking about PTSC or public transport service. How hard would that be? You get a Google Map draw out of your routes, some kind of map drawn out, and GPS tracking of the buses, where they are, the ETA to where they're going to be. How hard would that be? Especially seeing as the buses already have GPS being inputted into software, and now they're getting $5 million more. And now they're getting $5 million more to improve that system. So disappointing. He promised a total expansion of the bus service once the PTSC fleet totaled over 500 buses. Urpuch East MP Dr. Rudal Munilal recalled some $500 million spent under the Patrick Manning administration on a rapid rail survey and warned that a budget allocation for a national transport study must not become a rapid rail number 2. And the reason he's talking about a national transportation plan is because new transportation plan, global tenders to be issued. Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinnan yesterday said yesterday that international tenders will soon go out for the development of a transportation plan for Trinidad and Tobago. Sininan was speaking yesterday at Parliament's Standing Finance Committee, at which he explained various aspects of his ministry's expenditure in the coming year. He noted that under Munilal noted the $500 million rapid rail plan. Sininan said the last national transportation plan for Trinidad and Tobago was completed in 1967 when there was still a lot of donkey carts on the road. Sininan said the national transportation plan is a roadmap for air, land and sea transportation and will take all aspects of traffic management, including looking at alternative routes. He said the plan will guide the country over the next 20 years, and the ministry is working with the Development Bank of Latin America and received grant funding for the policy aspects of the plan. So there's a promise that a national transportation plan is being researched, and they're getting international tenders. So international professionals are going to be here to evaluate how best can we run our country's transportation systems more efficiently. He spoke here, it's going to be looking at land, sea, air, everything. So who has hopes for that? Now, I don't want to sound too cynical about it, because I think that might be a good idea to get a good plan for what you're going to do about Trinidad's transportation system. That might be a good idea. It's just that I could understand Dr. Munilal's worry. There was research done about a rapid rail. We paid good money for it, $500 million according to Dr. Munilal, and nothing came about that. So is it that we're going to spend these couple millions of dollars here and research Trinidad's a new transportation plan for Trinidad and then still continue the same way we've always been going? Do you have hope that, you know what, this new transportation plan, after the government figures it out and does their research, Trinidad is going to be a breeze? I say we spend 500 million donkey and horse. I don't disagree. It might be useful. Riding animals, at least for the short distance. I don't mind. I ride a little horse to go in the parlor here and there. Might be good benefit. All right, folks. All right. That's all I have for tonight. Are there any further questions or comments before I dive out? Thank you, Orlando. Much appreciated. Are there any questions or comments, or is that all for now? Can you do law? Law in terms of what? You know, I do take requests on my videos, you know, the videos I generally do over on TikTok and on Instagram too. You could send in a request if you'd like me to do a video on something. So, yeah, you can do that. Hey, I forgot to mention this. This video, this live is brought to you by Mindful Education. Mindful with 2 L's, _education. That's our page over there on Instagram. You could head over there and follow Mindful Education. We're offering pod classes, learning pods for the age groups from preschool straight up to CXC. What learning pods are homeschool styled education, homeschool style teaching, where our tutors and our teachers aim to interact with students on their syllabus, the same syllabus generally that they would be learning in the school, with additional bits, and aim to make the learning much more interesting, comfortable, and suited to the individual students, because they would be in much smaller classes. The class sizes would be around 6, and they would be able to ask questions and interact with their teacher, interact with their fellow students, and the effects and the results you see from that style of learning would speak for themselves. So if you are interested in such, you can head over to mindful_education over there on Instagram. The registration information and the contact information is there. Contact us if you would like to register for such classes. We also offer private tutoring for most CXC and CAPE subjects if you are interested in such also. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you are educated, informed, or entertained. And I will see you for the next Mindful Live tomorrow at 9:15 p.m. And tomorrow is Wednesday. Wednesday, the middle of the week, hump day. We usually do Tobago. The hump day is for Tobago issues. So we'll be talking Tobago tomorrow. If you want to hear about what's going on in Tobago and learn about Tobago issues and see what's interesting over there, see you guys tomorrow 9:15 for the next Mindful Live. Until then, peace, folks. It was nice. Laters. Bye.